I'm JJ Virgin, PhD dropout, sorry mom, turned 4-time New York Times bestselling author. Yes, I'm a certified nutrition specialist, fitness Hall of Famer, and I speak at health conferences and trainings around the globe. But I'm driven by my insatiable curiosity and love of science to keep asking questions, digging for answers, and sharing the information I uncover with as many people as I can. And that's why I created the Well Beyond 40 podcast, to synthesize and simplify the science of health into actionable strategies to help you thrive. In each episode, we'll talk about what's working in the world of wellness, from personalized nutrition and healing your metabolism to healthy aging and prescriptive fitness. Join me on the journey to better health so you can love how you look and feel right now and have the energy to play full out at 100. If you're dealing with menopause symptoms, listen up. Misinformation could be making you miserable and, worse than that, potentially hurting your health. In this video, I'm going to refute the misinformation and give you the information you need to walk into your doctor informed so that you can make the best decision for yourself and your overall health. All right, so this misinformation, it all started with the Women's Health Initiative. What went wrong? Well, first of all, the Women's Health Initiative used a specific combination of hormone therapy called Prempro, which consisted of synthetic estrogen and progesterone. Now, some critics argue that the results might not apply to other forms of HRT, such as estrogen-only therapy. And here's the other issue. They used oral estrogen, and oral estrogen has been shown to be problematic and isn't used by most of the functional medicine doctors I know. In fact, any of them. They do patches or shots or cream or troches. So let's get into the study. This was 2002 when this was abruptly halted because the preliminary data showed an increased risk of breast cancer amongst women taking a combination of estrogen and progesterone as part of their HRT regimen. So this decision to stop the study early due to safety concerns was like this huge media outburst and caused all this alarm among women using HRT. And understandably, it's like increase in breast cancer of 26%, except when you dig into the research of this 26%, it was a relative risk increase, which means it was a percentage increase in the existing risk rather than the absolute risk increase. And when it was unpacked, you know what it turned out to be? That there was one more breast cancer case in the HRT group versus the non-HRT group. One person. That was it. That was why this whole thing was halted. And when they analyzed it further, there was a bit of a more nuanced picture. While there was an increase in relative risk of breast cancer associated with HRT, that one person, the absolute risk was relatively small. Critics estimated that for every 10,000 women taking combination HRT for a year, now remember, this was synthetic too, not the type that the functional medicine doctors are using now, there'd be an additional 8 cases of breast cancer. Couple other things that went on. The study evaluated the effects of HRT over a really short period, about 5 years, which really didn't give it much time to assess this thing accurately. And the bigger important thing was the participants in the study were older women. The average age was 63 years old, which I would not say is old. But the important thing was this is when they were starting HRT. And that means that they'd lost a lot of years of protection that HRT could have given them. They were likely off of hormones for 10 years. So what was that doing at the time for their cardiovascular system, their bone health, their brain health? And the study, and the way it was reported in the media, it basically took out a generation of women. And worse than that, it still seems to live on. So hopefully you'll look at this, and I did a Well Beyond 40 podcast really unpacking the whole WHI study and all of the issues with it, including the way that kind of they lied with statistics, the media blew it up, and the fact that they used synthetics, and they started with women 10 years postmenopausal. Like, there are just a lot of issues with it. And, you know, I had one woman DM me and she goes, I'm 65 and is it too late for me? And I feel like I'm really lost. And then another woman who came up to me, I was speaking at an event, and she goes, you know, I'm done doing everything that you talk about. I'm exercising, lifting heavy things. I'm eating protein first, and I'm eating ideal amounts of protein. I'm doing good recovery. I'm sleeping well. I'm managing stress. I cannot lose the weight. Turns out, lower estrogen, and of course, you go through menopause and your estrogen is basically very, very, very low. You're producing what you can produce through your adrenals, but your estrogen's very low, right? Estrogen's needed to burn fat. Estrogen's needed to build muscle, and estrogen's needed for a good, healthy metabolism. In fact, it's estimated that when you dump your estrogen, you lower your metabolism by about 200 calories a day. So this woman comes in, she goes, I can't lose the weight, no matter what I try. And she goes, I don't want to go on hormones. I want to do this naturally. And I'm like, well, but hormones are natural when you think about this. Because you're giving your body what it had naturally. And ideally, when you want to go on hormone replacement therapy, when you start having the symptoms. But ideally, you want to do it in conjunction with doing everything you can through diet and lifestyle so that you need the least amount possible and you have the least impact, the least lowering possible. So we're going to talk about all of that. But first of all, like, how do you know where you're at? Because you can test, but I want you to remember that testing is a moment in time. It's a snapshot. And you are a movie. Your hormones are a movie, especially as you're going through in your perimenopause. Your hormones are fluctuating a lot, especially estrogen. Progesterone's declining, testosterone's declining, but estrogen is going like this, and then it goes whoop. So there's also more to it than just testing. There's also, beyond your levels, there's also your hormone receptor sensitivity and your hormone receptor density. So there's a lot here to look at. But the first thing you want to look at is, what are your symptoms? And we're going to talk about the symptoms of low estrogen, of low progesterone, low testosterone, and there's a lot of crossover between them, just so you know. But you start to look at all of these if you're starting to have irregular menstrual cycles. Maybe they've gotten lighter, maybe they've gotten heavier. Most likely they didn't get lighter. Most likely they're more irregular, or you're missing them, or they're lengthening. So that's the first thing we start to look at. For low estrogen, you'll start to get those hot flashes, the night sweats, dry skin, dry vaginal dryness, irritability. Best way I remember feeling like I just wanted to unzip my skin and leave and come back later. Your libido goes in the tank. You're tired. Your skin and hair start to get weird, dry, and thin. You get memory problems, like you're walking into a room and you have brain fog. You can't remember why you were there. You can't seem to concentrate. And this is where you start to get joint pain, weight gain. Again, estrogen, as it goes down, your metabolism starts to go down. The things that I remember with this are, number one, I couldn't recover from the gym, so I had more inflammation. In fact, one of the things we start to see is that cholesterol goes up, inflammation goes up, insulin starts to go up. And I had night sweats, my gums started to bleed, and I started to gain weight around my waist. For testosterone, some of the things that you'll start to feel, some of them are similar to estrogen, like your fatigue and your mood changes and your libido's going down. But the big things here are libido, muscle weakness, inability to put on muscle. You'll have a lot of the stuff there too with memory, and similar to estrogen, higher risk of osteoporosis and bone fractures, with the role of testosterone needed for bone density maintenance, and of course just kind of reduced sensation when you're having sex. Progesterone. And when I think of progesterone, and this is the first one that starts to decline in most of us, one of the biggest things that it does is anxiety and sleep. So those are the ones you're really going to start to see, along with irregular cycles and heavier bleeds. But things, bigger PMS stuff like mood swings, irritability, breast tenderness, bloating. You might get miscarriages or infertility. Biggest one of all, though, insomnia. And quite often, as this one starts to go, if you just replace with a little bit of progesterone, you start to sleep well as well. Another one that can come up here is GI symptoms. You'll get constipated, you might get bloated. So those are all things that you'll start to see with progesterone. And again, one other important one with progesterone that's common is headaches and migraines. And so if you're someone who's never had headaches or migraines, then all of a sudden you do, this is another big sign. And again, these are all important because lab testing is a snapshot. And you are going to want to put that together with symptoms when you go talk to your doctor. Now, here's the thing. Don't wait till you're miserable with symptoms to go on HRT. You're going to go on HRTs because you're going to be working with your functional medicine doctor. You're going to be working with your labs and with your symptoms. And you want to come in and you're going to do your own work too, because you can't balance hormones in isolation, right? And really what's important here is that you're doing this along with diet and lifestyle. Now, whichever way you decide to go, whether you decide to try to do this with, supplements, or you decide to go bioidentical, there's other things that are super important. One of them being thyroid health. Because if your thyroid's not working well, it's going to be really hard for you to balance your hormones. So one of the signs, you're going to want to get a full thyroid panel. And I've done videos on thyroid health. Full thyroid panel, including TSH, free T3 and T4, thyroid antibodies, but some signs that your thyroid's not working really well: fatigue, weight gain, cold, constipated, your LDL cholesterol goes up, you start to lose the outer third of your eyebrows, your skin's got a little yellow tinge to it. So those are just some common ones. You might get a little bit depressed, your hair might start falling out. The other one that's important here is your adrenal health. And most of the functional medicine doctors I know do a full thyroid workup as they're starting to look at working with someone on putting them on HRT. And they do a full adrenal workup. And what they'll do there is they'll do an adrenal salivary index. That's a salivary test where they have you spit 4 times a day to see your cortisol rhythm. Because as we go through menopause, we start to have our cortisol go up. One of the things you're going to start to see during menopause is you'll start to see that more belly fat, because we will either produce estrogen through our adrenals or through our belly fat, or both. And so you might start to see higher cortisol, more issues with your belly fat. And remember, as we start to go into menopause, as our ovaries start to shut down and not produce estrogen, we're going to rely on our adrenal glands to produce estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, and you'll also use your body fat to do that. Ideally, you'd rather do it through your adrenals and through hormone replacement therapy. Another thing that starts to happen during this time is our cortisol goes up and we become more insulin resistant. So now we have higher blood sugar and, again, more belly fat. Probably notice some of these things. And what I've seen is you can do a lot with diet, a lot with exercise, a lot with sleep, but boy, if those hormones are down and you do a little hormone replacement therapy, it is a game changer. Now, the things that you can also do to support this in diet, eating some phytoestrogen-rich foods. I'm going to do a shout out here to Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who wrote the XX Brain and wrote some great information about diet here. This could be sesame seeds, flax seeds, chickpeas. If you can handle soy and don't have thyroid issues, soy and soy isoflavones can work here. The other thing you're going to want to include in here are high fiber foods. Number one, fiber supports a healthy gut microbiome, which of course is mission critical for hormone balance. And the other thing that fiber does is helps with estrogen metabolism, because when you are metabolizing estrogen, you have to be able to eliminate bad and excess estrogen, and that's what fiber does. So that's super important. And of course, remember, if you're doing fiber, you want to have the water with it too. So make sure you're staying well hydrated. Now, in terms of supplements, there are some different supplements that can help with hormone balance during this time. But I'm going to look at things that more help with detoxification. One of the things I really like here is something called DIM. This supports hormone balance during HRT by aiding in estrogen metabolism and converting estrogen into its less potent forms, which reduce the risk of estrogen dominance. And research shows that DIM could have a protective effect on breast tissue by promoting healthy estrogen metabolism. It's one of those supplements that's considered safe for most people, and it's often recommended. I think if you're taking estrogen, this is definitely one that you want to take alongside it. Now, one that I didn't know before, and it was actually crazy because this happened to me, is ginseng. So I talked about hormone receptor sensitivity and density. Well, this past year I was at a lecture at A4M, and Chris Shade was talking about using adaptogens to improve hormone receptor sensitivity. And one of the things he talked about was ginseng. Last summer, I was in Korea, and I bought this very special 6-year-old black ginseng root, and I started taking it. And I didn't think much about it, and then I got a call from my doctor saying that I needed to cut my thyroid and estrogen medications and hormones in half. And I didn't put it together at first. And I went, oh my gosh, the only thing I changed was ginseng. How does this happen? Well, ginseng, first of all, is going to help the body adapt to stress. It's going to help the body maintain hormone balance. It supports overall well-being. And these were all the things they taught us when we were at the Ginseng Museum in Seoul. They were like, it boosts energy and vitality. It helps your physical and mental performance. It's great for reducing fatigue. I'm like, okay, cool. They said it improved cognitive function and it improved memory, improved libido. So all of those things sounded great. I started taking it. I didn't expect it to have the impact where I needed less hormone replacement therapy because of it. So it also is a great antioxidant, so it can protect your cells as well. But again, where I'm looking at it here is using an adaptogen like ginseng. Ashwagandha is another one that can help improve hormone receptor sensitivity, because wouldn't it be cool if you can use the least amount of these hormones that you need to get the positive result? Another one that supports hormone replacement therapy is vitamin D3. And, when you look at what happens during menopause, if you lose those hormones, the biggest risk we have is to our heart, to our bones, and to our brain. Now, vitamin D3 is going to be helpful for maintaining bone density, for reducing osteoporosis risk. It helps with mood regulation. It helps with hormonal balance and immune function. And also, what's super important is also important for insulin sensitivity. And one of the things that happens as we go through menopause is we become more insulin resistant. Vitamin D can also lower the risk of postmenopausal diseases like cardiovascular disease, and it contributes to overall well-being and health. Plus, again, when you're going through menopause, you're at increased risk for osteoporosis. So you want to have that vitamin D on board because it helps with keeping your bones, helping you bring in the calcium, and direct it. And then K, of course, helps you direct it to the right levels. Now, here's the thing. You want to monitor your vitamin D levels as you go through this. It's crucial to monitor vitamin D levels because you don't want to have too much either, because you store fat-soluble vitamins. Although I don't see most people having too much, I see most people not even close to where they need to be. So you're going to want to get a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test and optimize it to be between 50 and 80 NGs per ml. You want to take your vitamin D3 with K. And generally it's K1 and 2, because you want K1, well, both vitamin D and K are involved in the regulation of calcium, where vitamin D is going to help you absorb calcium from the diet. K makes sure it goes to the right places, like your bones and your teeth, rather than in your soft tissue like your arteries. Now, one of the things we know about estrogen therapy is that it can have cardiovascular protective effects. There is a possibility with risk of blood clots in some women, and that's another thing that vitamin K can play a role in here, is it prevents arterial calcification and helps maintain vascular health, which could mitigate some of the potential adverse cardiovascular effects associated with HRT. Plus, some research suggests that estrogen may increase the synthesis of vitamin K-dependent proteins involved in bone and vascular health. So, the bottom line is, you want to have HRT with vitamin D, with vitamin K, to optimize the effects of estrogen therapy on bone metabolism and cardiovascular function. Now, one other one that you probably haven't heard about is something called geranol. This is one I think every then postmenopausal woman should be on, because it may stimulate osteoblast activity. And these are the cells that are responsible for bone formation, and it may inhibit osteoclast activity. Those are the cells responsible for bone resorption. And when you support bone reformation and you reduce bone breakdown, then you help mitigate bone loss and osteoporosis, and that is a big thing. Remember, the big things we're worried about here as we get into perimenopause and beyond is cardiovascular health, bone health, and brain health. GG also can reduce oxidative damage and inflammation and potentially alleviate hot flashes and mood swings and joint pain as well. Plus, geranol may have beneficial effects on cardiovascular health. So here's what it does. It's actually in the pathway to make CoQ10. It's ahead in there, so it can help with your body making CoQ10, so it helps promote vascular function. It can help reduce arterial stiffness, and It can also inhibit the development of atherosclerosis. So I take a product every day that has something called ionatocotrienols, that's a specific form of vitamin E, and GG, and it's one of the things that I do for heart and bone health, and I'm going to link to that in the show notes as well. The bottom line here is that you want to look at all of the diet and lifestyle things you can do first, right? Like what are the phytoestrogens, the phytonutrients you can put in your diet to support good production? How can you put fiber in so that you can detoxify the estrogens? How do you have better blood sugar balance so that you don't become more insulin resistant? Then what do you need to do to manage stress? It's because you've got to have really good adrenal glands going through this time. What do you need to do to optimize thyroid, right? And then which supplements can I take to support this? Then work with your doctor to get yourself that hormone replacement therapy. Don't live in misery. There is no need to do it. Don't buy into the fear of the misinformation. There's no reason to be miserable in menopause. Honestly, this can be the best time of your life. I just interviewed Dr. Lisa Mosconi for Well Beyond 40, who talks about the menopause brain. And she says, a postmenopausal brain is actually a way happier brain. So let's live into that. And in this next video, I'm going to share 6 ways that you can master menopause and feel better than ever. Be sure to join me next time for more tools, tips, and techniques you can incorporate into everyday life to ensure you look and feel great, and more importantly, that you're built to last. And check me out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and my website, jjvirgin.com. And make sure to follow my podcast so you don't miss a single episode at subscribetojj.com. See you next time. Hey, JJ here, and just a reminder that the Well Beyond 40 podcast offers health, wellness, fitness, and nutritional information that's designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. You should not rely on this information as a substitute for, nor does it replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or questions about your health, you should always consult with a physician or other healthcare professional. Make sure that you do not disregard, avoid, or delay obtaining medical or health-related advice from your healthcare professional because of something you may have heard on the show or read in our show notes. The use of any information provided on the show is solely at your own risk.